This is the Slow Wardrobe. Come and have a look. Hello. Welcome to episode 87 of the Slow Wardrobe podcast. My name is Linda and I'm your host. Second session from my what is now new office at the studio. I haven't moved the studio, I've just moved to the front of it, and I love the extra space. And I still have my little presentation corner here for the knitting section and other related bits other than Layercake of the podcast. So in this episode, I'll give you an update on what I've been knitting on. And then there's a section about some serious trouser surgery, a pair of baggies that literally wore through at the knees. I will explain more about that later. And the question was, what do you do if a patch is not enough and you need something more drastic than that? So I will show you the solution that I've come up with, and I hope it can be of inspiration of use to you when you have mends to do on Layercake or other garments. And then, of course, the Layercake section of the podcast as well. In the previous episode in 86, I introduced the love jacket and the panel skirt, both in combinations of herringbone woven linen in different colors, combined with undyed linen. There'll be more about those in this episode. I introduced them as complete sets and did a little bit of styling last time. This time I'm really separating the skirts from the jackets and styling those independently with other parts of the Layercake collection to inspire you as to how you can wear those with other parts of your wardrobe at home. But first, into the knitting. So yes, knitting. I don't know whether I started these socks. I'll kind of start where I left off last time. I had finished the cardigan and just had to put some buttons on the cardigan that I had knitted from some yarn that was deep stash, at least 10 years old, that I scored for a very low price at Wingham Woolworks. I think it's Wingham Woolworks. I stumble over the name every time. I do apologize. The only thing that was left to do after last time was put some buttons on. I have chosen some buttons that I had in my stash as well, and I'll show you a photograph here of a close-up of a button on the cardigan so that you get an idea. I had I played with lots of different types of buttons, and all of them were just too loud and just were taking attention away from the gorgeous wool. So I wanted to do something very, very subtle but not boring, and I ended up with these very, very old horn buttons that I bought again years ago and finally saw a use for. They've got a chunkiness about them. They're small but quite chunky, and I think that goes really well with the kind of feel and the rustic image as well as color of the cardigan. So that's the cardigan out of the way. And my works in progress, I told you about the pair of socks that I knitted, where when I showed the yarn to husband and one of the boys, I said, who's interested in a pair of socks of this? And they both went like, oh yes please. So the socks are going to my son because I found some other yarn that I have knitted a pair of socks for husband out of. This is a yarn that is, well, it's two different yarns. They're stripy socks and they're both different yarns. The yarn is in both cases held double, so you get the same kind of chunky effect as the 8-ply Regia yarn that I used for the orange socks. This is two different sock yarns, both held double. Both of them are, well, one of them is from a hand dyer. It was a sock blank, and she's not dyeing anymore. So again, this was deep stash. Bought it somewhere about 6 or 7 years ago at least. And the other yarn is a yarn that is also discontinued. I think it's a Rico yarn. I'll put the details down below. And both yarns held double and then knitted with, I think it was 3¼ millimeter needles. And I used the same kind of pattern, the broken rib pattern, for the entire part, the leg and as well as the foot, and just have the sole in a plain stockinette. Just to show you that the other one is here as well. Both socks are complete. So another finished project. Oh, and before I forget, the thing that I wanted to point out, you can see it better probably when I hold them next to each other. Can you see that there's a color difference in the darker color between the two socks? That has to do with the fact that I held the yarn double of the sock blank, and of course there were variations in the yarn of the sock blank, and it's worked out that one of the socks literally is lighter, more towards the red and pink spectrum, and then just as I get to the end of the first sock and start with the second one, I'm going more from that reddish color into purple. So there's a slight difference between the two. But they're going to be socks for wearing around the house, and I think that my husband will actually like the fact that there's a slight difference between them. But I thought I pointed that out. It was not intentional, it's just how the yarn worked out based on me holding both strands together, and I quite like it. Now, I have a third pair of finished socks to show you. This is a very unusual sock pattern that comes from nitty.com. So it's a free pattern, and the name of the pattern is Skew. The reason that it's called Skew is, I don't know how well you can see that. I hope you can see that there are diagonal lines throughout the sock. It's because the sock is knitted on the bias. It's knitted in a diagonal line. And you can see here that there's a line of straight stitches going up. There's a line of straight stitches kind of sideways going around the heel, and then there are straight stitches going up the leg. It's a toe-up sock. I'll show you the other one because it will show you a little bit better how unusual it is in its shaping. And there is a left foot and a right foot. There's a heel at the back here, so this is the left foot. You start at the bottom, and by increasing on one side and decreasing on the other side and having a couple of edge stitches, knitting in the round as you usually do, you end up with a bias fabric. When you get to the heel section, it's got a very ingenious way of turning the heel with a little bit of grafting involved, and the stitches that are running up the side of the sock end up passing around the back of your heel. That makes for an incredibly comfortable fit, but it also makes for socks that are not easy to get on and off. Now, I had knitted 1.5 of this pair of socks, and I had abandoned the project. This was going years back. And with moving my stash, as I did shortly after Christmas, I refound them, and I thought, this is pathetic. I have stopped short of turning the second heel and just abandoned the project. It must have been because the heel turn is a section of the knitting where you really have to pay attention. It's not mindless knitting. It's not something that you can just do watching TV and just keep the hands going. You need to pay attention and count stitches and make sure that you do this ingenious heel turn properly. So I thought, how strange. Well, there's no reason for me not to finish it. I finished the socks. I enjoyed knitting them. And it was not until I finished and gave them to my husband, who there were 4. He put the first sock on and he said, oh my God, I'm not sure I can get these over my heel. And we were both worked out that the reason I must have abandoned them the first time is that we had done something similar. He had tried on the first sock and said, these are too tight to put on. And I thought, oh man, and I just threw them aside and didn't look back at the project. Completely forgot about that, of course. Finished them now, and we've now have a pair of socks that my guess is that if he really forces them around his heel, will snap the yarn some way or another. They are that tight. However, all is not lost. Our daughter has much smaller feet than my husband. I have the same problem because I have a very high instep that they're very difficult for me to get on. But her feet are smaller, her instep is not quite as high. So next time I see her, I'll ask her if she can put them on, and they will be too long for her. She's a UK size 6.5, 7 foot. But if, as long as this bit of the sock fits her, I can then open up the sock down halfway down the foot and re-knit the toe part, foot down, cuff down effectively, knit it to a smaller size in that way with both of the socks, and then we'll have at least a pair of socks that fits one member of the family. Because of the colors are quite fun and sweet, so I think she'll enjoy having them as a pair of walking socks, especially since if they do fit this sock shape, oh my gosh, it's like wearing gloves. So I am not quite sure what caused them to be this tight, because it was the second pair of socks that I knitted out of in this particular pattern. The first pair started off to be a little bit tight as well when he first got them, but they've been fine ever since. This is just that little bit tighter, so I don't know whether my gauge is a little bit tighter. I need to check that, because I haven't given up on the pattern. He loves the pattern so much, so I'm going to knit another pair of socks with a slightly thicker yarn, and maybe go for like a size 2.5mm needle, because this was 2.25, and a relatively fine sock yarn. So hopefully, if I scale everything up just a tiny bit, we'll be out of the woods and he'll end up with a pair that he enjoys wearing and that fit him properly. So that's my finished objects. This was one that was in the making for years and I just finished it, so I wanted to show it for that reason. And on to my works in progress. First off is the knitted version that I'm making of the phone pouch. As you can see, a little bit of progress, but not a lot. I have to do this in proper daylight because the stitches are small, and it's a slip stitch pattern to ensure that I end up with a fabric that is not stretchy. That was the challenge. I've cracked it, but it's slow going. So I do apologize to everyone who's waiting for a knitted version of this pattern. I really do want to finish a complete sample before I release the pattern. So bear with me. It's on its way and it will come eventually. So that's one of them. The other one, which is my evening knitting at the moment, I still haven't returned to my cashmere jumper, even though there's no reason not to. I will get to it again. But as I said to you a while ago, that move, that stash move, has released so many ideas and has put me back in touch with such a big part of my stash of yarns that I was absolutely aching to knit with. And the project that I've got behind me is made up out of a selection of yarns that I bought and that I still had, that were probably just about enough for a project, and only if I would combine all of them in that one project. So that's what I'm doing. So the yarns that I'm using are four different colors of a Malabrigo yarn called Finito, which is a gorgeous, very fine merino yarn. I absolutely adore it. I adore knitting with it. It is super soft, and in its dye, it's kettle dyed, and in its the way it's adopted the dyes, there is some variation in the color, especially in this beautiful blood red color. Now, I have a selection of small amounts of these particular colors. I have 4 hanks of 50 grams of the red, 2 hanks each of 50 grams of this light gray and a darker variegated gray. Actually, if I hold up the balls, you probably get a better impression of their color. So the red is quite clear to see because it is a whitish stripe. But I'm ending up knitting a pattern that represents the amounts of yarn that I have in the different colors. So I have 4 times 50 of these, so 200 grams of this. Then I have 100 grams of this light gray, almost a grayish. Then I have 100 grams of this slightly darker variegated gray that has slight hints of lilac in it, but also at some points goes almost to this light gray. So going from a narrow stripe in the light gray to a narrow stripe in the darker gray looks gorgeous. It's like a fade almost. Then I have just one hank of 50 grams of this gorgeous, beautiful, somewhere in between mustard and chartreuse color. And I had completely different yarn, almost 2 full hanks, so I think it was 90 grams in total, of a Koigu Mori yarn, which is a yarn that has a high percentage of silk in it, in what used to be my favorite colorway, which was that I remember that the color number was 118C. And I kept this behind. It was almost 2 hanks, but not quite. So only 90 grams of it. I think it runs about 160 meters per 50 grams. So I had about 260 meters of it. So what I'm doing is I'm knitting 10 rounds of the red, 2 rounds of the light gray, 2 rounds of the darker gray, 1 round of the mustard, then 2 rounds of the Koigu, and then I reverse that back into the mustard, the dark gray, the light gray, and then onto my next red. And what you're seeing here is a cardigan that has little nups around the neckline to highlight and celebrate that wonderful Koigu yarn. So that's what I've started with, and doing these little nups. Then I go into the red, where I have knitted short rows in the back, which I hopefully can make visible. So here you can see the short rows in the back that make a full wide stripe, and then that wide stripe almost disappears in the front, as you can see, just below the neckline. And now I'm in the process of knitting the yoke. I've got a little bit more to go before I can separate for the sleeves. It's going to be another boxy cardigan, and that wanted to specifically point out to you because you can actually see a line here of not very neat looking stitches running down the front. And the reason that those stitches don't look that neat is because that is where I'm going to steek the cardigan. So I'm knitting it in the round. I am just carrying all my yarns, as you can see, but there are sections where, for example, after knitting the red, I go back to the light gray and I grab that light gray from all the way up here. So I've got some longer floats, for want of a better word, that are running behind, which of course are all going to disappear because that's pretty much my cutting line. So knitting in the round means no purling, so I can go really nice and quickly. I've only been knitting on this for 4 or 5 evenings, and I'm almost at the point of separating for the sleeves already. So I'm making lovely progress, and it feels extremely indulgent, especially since my cashmere blend jumper is still patiently waiting in the wings to have it finished. Second half of the second sleeve, and then the bottom border panels that are, rather than making them cuff and edge like, they're going to be like extra panels, which I explained in a previous episode, and I will show it to you once I've knitted them, of course. But for now, oh my gosh, this is my current obsession that I just have to knit. It's like a lovely little cardigan for springtime, I hope. So that's my main work in progress there. So that's all for the knitting section. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to go on to talk to you about this poor pair of baggy trousers that was, well, not that poor because it's been loved, but almost loved to death. In the next section, make do and mend your baggies when you need more than just a little patch. Right, well, let me start by showing you a photograph here of what the baggies look like before doing anything to them. As you can see, they have been patched on the inside of the fabric with kind of stick-on patches. These stick-on patches are something to behold. I've never encountered stick-on patches like that before. They're almost like cardboard. They're really hard and really stiff, and a completely different kind of way of moving than the linen has. And of course, they've been stuck on areas where the linen was either completely worn through or in the process of wearing through. So it's an almost gauzy quality of linen, and then with these very hard, inflexible patches stuck on. Now, this was done by a very dear customer who was just desperate to keep wearing them. She's a young mum. She spends a lot of time on her knees on the floor, and hence the linen eventually giving up and wearing through. So what do you do with a pair of baggies that has extensive damage in pretty localized areas, but also pretty big areas? I reckon that the thin part of the linen is about this big in diameter on both legs. Of course, the other thing is that I have to make sure that the area that is covered in any new fabric is substantially bigger than the area of linen that is thinner on the baggies themselves, to make sure that we have fabric on fabric that isn't going to wear through very quickly again because it's already thinning. So I had a proper look at them, and I've come up with an idea as to how this can be mended. I'll put in a short video right here to talk you through what I did, and then I'll come back and show you a photograph of the finished garment, as it will be sent back to her, hopefully for many more months or hopefully years to wear. I thought I'd start by showing you again the photograph of the trousers as they reached me. You can see the pale areas on the front at kind of knee height, like kind of in between the pockets. This is where the fabric wore really thin, and with the patches sewn behind it, or stuck behind it, because the patches have been ironed on, that made that particular section of the trousers very stiff, and that has worn the edges of the patches even faster. So it's got a lot of weak spots around the patches, but the areas that are lightest are completely covered in very stiff, almost cardboard-like patches. So moving on to the next photograph, this is the kind of look that I wanted to achieve. I wanted to use some of the black gingham fabric, a contrasting color on purpose, but that kind of goes nicely with the charcoal, to create long strips that look really integrated with the trousers, and that those are just strips that are lying on top of the trousers at the moment. But the idea is that where the strip hits the pocket, it would disappear into the pocket as an extra feature of the strip and the color change. So the result would be a properly integrated look, and rather than looking like something that's been mended. And of course, it also ensures that whole area that is worn most rigorously, where your knees sit whenever you're kneeling on the floor, would be strengthened with an extra layer of fabric. So the next thing I then did was to make a paper pattern of the strips that I wanted to apply and to mark out exactly where the pockets are so that I knew where to cut the strips. And the idea is then to sew on the strips. But before I could even start with sewing on the strips, I first had to attack the area with those patches in. So I cut 2 pieces of fabric. These are the trousers inside out, as you can see. This is linen again, black linen. And I pinned the linen around the patched areas, making sure that all the thinner fabric and all the vulnerable fabric was covered by these black patches. And I basically sewed those patches in place before cutting away the old patches, if you like. So I would follow the sewing lines that you can see with the pins there. And after that black fabric is then put in place because it's sewn flat on top of the grey, I could then tend to the other side and cut out the stiff patches without losing the integrity of the shape of the trousers. After sewing, as you can see, going back to the outside of the trousers, you can see on the right one of the patched areas with the sewing lines around it of where the black fabric is put behind it to steady the shape of the trouser. And on the left you can see the patches that I have cut out of that black patch, if you like. And you can see those patches, I've turned them over so you can see all of them kind of stacked on top of each other, which made, of course, the fabric even stiffer. And I then did exactly the same thing with the other side. This is a close-up of the other side to show you a bit more clearly where the zigzag lines are of the stitching to attach the black fabric. And then in the front, you can see the weak and damaged areas of the grey linen with the glued on patches still behind it. After removing both patches, that's what the trousers looked like on the outside. You can see the weak areas removed and strengthened with black fabric behind it. And now the trousers are ready to attach the gingham fabric strips over the top. So this is the next photograph where you can see that I have ironed the edges of the gingham fabric so that I don't have to keep folding and try and be neat while I'm sewing, but pre-ironing that seam allowance, pre-ironing that crease into it makes it then very easy to sew the edge of the fabric very neatly. So there they are, pinned into place, and you can see there how what I meant with putting the fabric, letting the fabric disappear into the pocket to make it look properly integrated in the design of the trousers. Following that, I sewed the segments on completely, the strips on completely. They're sewn into the pockets as you can see. The bit that you can't see is that if you look inside the pocket, then that strip goes all the way down to the bottom as well. So it really looks like a properly integrated strip into the trousers. They are hemmed at the bottom, and the fabric also goes around the edge, the top edge of the waistline with the fabric at the top. So it's a properly integrated pair of trousers and pretty much ready to send back to the owner, like I said, for hopefully a lot more wear. Here's the inside again of the finished trouser. I've trimmed away the excess black fabric, and there's the extra layer, and that fabric is not going to go anywhere. It's done on a very small, a very wide but tight zigzag stitch a couple of times around. So that's probably now the strongest part of the entire trouser and ready to wear again. So I hope that all made sense, and that you like the idea that I came up with. I'll show you a photograph here of the finished pair, and you can see the effect that I was after with that band of fabric almost disappearing, looking like it disappears into the bottom pocket, which of course highlights the bottom pocket. And you can see nothing on the outside of the fact that the fabric that has been covered by the gingham strip is reinforced on the inside as well, giving me effectively 3 layers of fabric at that knee section, so that'll take a hell of a lot of crawling around before it will wear through again. But that's the solution. So going for a much bigger panel and looking like you make that panel integrate into the garment rather than a patch that is separated out or a patch that tries to blend in, which in a case like this is just impossible, is a really good alternative. Of course, you need more fabric for it, but the result is actually a really interesting pair of trousers. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful. On to the Layercake section of this week. Enjoy. So here we are with part 2 of the introduction of the Joy Jacket and the panel skirt. As you may know, if you have watched episode 86 or get my newsletters, there are 4 sets currently on pre-order until the end of Monday, the 27th of February. And they are in the steel with a matching panel skirt, chartreuse, magpie, and a new purple color called pansy. In that first episode where I introduced these, episode 86, I'm showing the matching sets of Joy Jacket and skirt. Today I'm going to really switch it up and show you lots of different combinations of both pieces, jackets and skirt, worn with lots of different layer cakes to inspire you how to integrate either of the two in your layer cake wardrobes. I've started with the steel jacket and a pair of steel herringbone baggies. The steel herringbone is the only of the 4 colors that the Joy Jacket comes in that is currently available as baggies. We will be introducing the other 3 colors as baggies as well, but we started with the panel skirt for now, so baggies will be coming later on this spring. So the most neutral color here, the steel, worn with a magpie love dress. Nice dark color and a nice contrast with the light jacket. Of course, I can make it a little bit lighter still if I turn it around and wear the undyed linen on the outside, like such. And then, of course, I can, if I want to, close the jacket up and tie together to show you the silhouette that it makes when, oh, actually I'm going to leave this collar up to show you that, because I have a tendency to fold it down, but of course you can just wear it up like this, which closes the jacket a little bit more, makes it a little bit warmer, and creates this lovely tulipy shape around the neckline, as you can see. So very muted colors with the dark dress. Very nice and classy outfit. Let's switch it up a little bit, shall we, with a bright color. Here we go. Here we are with stunning magenta. Love dress again. Same size, size 1 regular in my case. With the steel jacket still. I didn't change that around, I just opened it up to switch up my outfit. Of course, you can also close the jacket like this. And the idea with this neckline and with, wearing it up or down is that you just leave it to do what it wants, unless you specifically want to create a line like this down, and then with a little bit of steam you could make that sit, and then with some steam you can change it again. So the main thing to try to avoid is to completely flatten something and then really iron it and you make a hard crease. It's not a problem. The linen can take it easily. Linen is very happy to be heated up and creased or uncreased or whatever. The more steam, the more heat, the better. However, it doesn't necessarily look great if you make very hard lines by making these very sharp creases on especially a lapel. Anyway, little sidetrack. So you can wear the jacket like this or just half close it. You can close it just a little bit with a lot more space. And rather having those ties completely tight by showing more of the dress, especially if you have a shorter stature, then by showing a little bit of the dress like here rather than closing it up completely, it really elongates your silhouette. Same with wearing it open, of course. Then by creating that column of color all the way up and down, it has a very lengthening effect on your silhouette. So nice bright color, but I'm still wearing the light baggy, so it's a real case here of the dress being the accent and then repeating that lighter color above and below it. But I can change it up by changing the baggies as well, and then the jacket becomes the accent rather than the dress. Let me show you what I mean. So I've kept everything the same except for switching out the baggies for magenta ones. So now the whole outfit is magenta and the jacket is the contrast and the accent of the rest of the outfit. As per usual, you can change up all of the different colors of the Joy jacket with an outfit like this. They will all form a lovely complement to a bright outfit, and like just calming down that color a little bit at the top around your face. And if you don't want to lose it, then you can of course then add a bright scarf or something if you want to keep the colors really bright around your neck and shoulders, even though you're wearing a lighter color jacket. So here it is with the herringbone side on the outside. I'll now grab one of the darker colors, the magpie, to show you what that is like against the bright pink. So magpie herringbone with the magenta outfit. I'll do the jacket up. There we are, a little bit more contrast, a little slightly stronger color in the jacket. And of course now I want to show you what the magpie jacket looks like with the magpie dress that I was wearing. So I'll change into that next, but here's the magpie with a nice bright outfit of dress and baggies. And these kind of layers are perfect for the weather at the moment. If you're living further up north, then it's a nice jacket to wear inside, but here it's already getting warm enough to wear this as an outside jacket as an alternative. The choice is yours. One of the reasons I wanted to show you this combination is not just to show off the magpie herringbone against the magpie dress, but also to show how, where before I had the dress as an accent color, the jacket as an accent color, and here the baggies are the accent. So this is a really good example of if you are someone who is used to wearing more classic colors around your face, and or you believe that those more classic muted colors suit you better, but you love to wear something bright, then this kind of outfit is a good solution, where you've got the bright right at the bottom, but it doesn't dominate the entire outfit. Still, every time you look down, you'll see that bright color. The people around you, of course, see it as well. And then with a small accessory, it could be something as subtle as a little brooch or a necklace, or something a bit more exuberant like a shawl, or even a small shawl, a little shawlette in a bright color. You can then bring that color back if you want to without it dominating the outfit. So much about styling the different colors together, but here we are with the magpie dress and the magpie jacket. Now this dress is my own dress. I brought it in from home. It's been worn and washed loads. I've literally pulled it from my wardrobe. It didn't go into the wardrobe freshly washed and pressed. So the kind of puckering and any folds that you can see is just from lots of wash and wear. And I've just wanted to show you how a fabric like that, even in a dark color like this, holds up over multiple months of wash and wear. And they just wear a treat. They are all hard wearing, and of course the herringbone being a looser weave is less strong on the seams, which is why we use it in garments like this, where the strength of the garment will come from the layer of plain linen on the inside. And wearing it like this, of course, you've got a double layer as well, so it makes it warmer, but it also makes it stronger on the seams. So I'm going to keep going, and back to the point of creating a long silhouette, I'm going to grab my own play suit in the magpie stripe, the summer play suits that we did last year, and show how that goes with the magpie jacket. So here's my magpie play suit, and rather than wearing it with the dress over the top or underneath, both are very viable options, especially if it's still more chilly. Then putting a love dress underneath a play suit works a treat. It will fit really nicely at the sleeves, and of course you get the length of the extra layer of fabric covering all the way till below your knees, which does not in any way fight with the bottom of the play suit, because that of course sits a lot lower still. So wearing dresses underneath play suits, perfect as an extra layer. But I've chosen a different extra layer at the moment because I've shown you that solution before. Sorry plant, I'm doing it again today. I'm wearing a size 2 anytime top, so nice and loose. The size 1 already has positive ease, but this obviously has even more, and it starts, you can see a little bit, it starts to replicate the look of the linen love dress or love tunic or love top, for example. That same sleeve effect, that same dolman sleeve, and how it sits in combination with the armholes of the tunics and the play suits, they work really well together, even if you wear bigger sizes underneath smaller sizes like I am here. But back to the jacket. Of course I can lighten this a little bit by wearing the lighter side out and then having the magpie peeping out from the inside, which of course ties together beautifully with the magpie in the play suit like this. So very nice, matchy matchy, very calm. Like I said, of course I can emphasize the peeping bits of herringbone, and I can go a step further like this, really emphasizing my layers by rolling up the sleeves. Bit of herringbone here, bit of herringbone there, nicely brought together as an outfit. But of course with the other colors, instead of going for complementary, I can go for contrast. So let's go contrast again. So match made in heaven, I think. The chartreuse joy jacket combined with the magpie stripe. Of course the magpie dress would look wonderful against this as well. But rather than going back into the magpie, I will keep going with the chartreuse. And just like I showed you the magpie jacket with the magpie dress, I will show you the chartreuse jacket with a chartreuse dress. Here we go. Good example of I've kept the entire outfit the same. I've just thrown the dress over the top and then the jacket back on. So what I was going to say is good example of having the dark color being the accent, and of course by bringing that dark blue back in my t-shirt, it kind of pulls the whole outfit together. You can also see here that the chartreuse is softened by the natural undyed color. So if chartreuse is a color that you normally find too bright or too sharp for you to wear, then you can see here that it's still in that same family. Tonally it's still very similar, but it's just softened by the weave with the undyed. So it's a consideration if you normally think a bit too much for me, that chartreuse, then consider this. It's more of a straw color, more hay-like, straw-like, that rather than full chartreuse, because it brings in that lovely neutral. So I'm going to keep going and say, well, right, I like this, but the chartreuse is a little bit much. I'll show you an example of a calmer color to wear against it where you can still then wear the chartreuse herringbone. I'll show you. So I thought I'd start with showing you the outfit without the jacket. So still wearing the blue Anytime top, the magpie stripe play suit, and now I'm wearing one of the love tunics in the undyed linen, which we just did very recently. They're still available to order on the website. If you missed out and you think, actually, I quite like one of those, then of course you can. They also, of course, wear lovely with the panel skirts. I'll show you that in a minute. But first, the jacket on. As you can see, because of the chartreuse dress being gone and replaced with an undyed linen, it's calmed everything down, and the effect of the chartreuse dress is gone. You just have the effect of the much lighter straw-like jacket. What do you think? Pockets. Of course, the love tunic doesn't have any pockets, but you can still get to the pockets of the play suit fairly easily. And you can see here what the lines are in terms of length. The sweeping line of the love tunic, the more jagged line of the jacket, especially in the front. All intentional, all on purpose. And I'm going to show you now what it looks like to wear this same set, but rather than with a dark bottom, wear the panel skirt with it. So you can see that the love tunic covers the top section of the panel shirt completely. So here it is. Love tunic worn with the chartreuse panel skirt. And I will now add, actually I'll put the natural side on the outside, why not? Put the chartreuse joy jacket on. I just realized all the emphasis has been on the jacket so far. So I'm going to give a bit of love to the panel skirts next. So as you can see here, the chartreuse is gone from the emphasis of the top. I can just bring it back in little flashes, and of course it's picked up in the skirt, which works a treat. So let me show you the skirt with some different garments as well. So enough of the joy jackets. We realize now you can throw them over pretty much anything. But what about the skirt and that color block in the skirt? Does that work with different garments? I'll show you that it does, starting now. I thought I'd start with one of the most popular still fabrics in the whole collection, the small check, and with its lovely green and kind of raspberry and rusty and blue colors, showing that against the chartreuse of the herringbone panel skirt. You can see that the chartreuse really picks up the colors and lightens the whole outfit, makes it lovely and spring-like. And then with wearing a light color top with it, of course I just had the undyed love tunic on, so I've kept it on just because I wanted to show that contrast top and bottom, but it doesn't have to be this. I could go back, for example, to chartreuse, not in the shape of the dress, but the chartreuse love top, for example, bringing that brighter green back at the top. I'll quickly show you what the impact of the outfit is. So the chartreuse love top, the stretchy cocoon top in a size 2, so nice and wide, and then you get these almost like duster type sleeves, nice and roomy, and it still fits nicely under my size 1 smock. And of course you can see that bringing the bright colors back, of course it makes the bright chartreusian greeny colors in the smock really pop and turns it into a lovely outfit for spring. So what about other colors? If I stay with contrast, but I actually or go with just darker rather than other side of the color spectrum, where do we end up? Well, not necessarily in the blues, because I'm not going that far away. Let me show you a really nice other contrast though with one of the dresses again, because I want to show you what happens to the panels if you put a dress with them. So, Mixed Spice Love Dress, a colour that we've completely sold out of last autumn, but it of course represents all the directions in all the colours in a kind of brownish and warm direction, the rusts, the oranges, and wearing that with the chartreuse. I think it's a gorgeous combination, but one of the things that I wanted to show you specifically is what happens with those panels. And does it break up the outfit too much? Not at all. The lines that the dress creates with the hem at the bottom and the contrast with the color, and then having another line to that next color, it just creates this beautiful column that seemingly keeps going, and again just has an elongating effect on your silhouette when you wear it like this. Now if you say, oh yeah, love these colors, but chartreuse is just too bright for me, then again of course you could keep the chartreuse at the bottom, which is softer already anyway, and replace the bright chartreuse for a more neutral color at the top. Let me show you. So here is an Anytime top in grey, which of course is very similar, very close to the undyed linen color. So that brings back the bottom of the skirt at the top of the outfit, again worn with the Mixed Spice dress. Of course, if I want to see less of this, I could push up my sleeves a little bit, or if it gets warmer, for example, you don't have to wear these sleeves down. It's nice from a layering point of view and for warmth, but if you don't need it for the warmth, they can just go up and disappear under your sleeves like such. So, more neutral still. Of course, we've got a more neutral skirt rather than the one with the chartreuse in it, which is the steel. Let me show you, because it's the perfect partner to this top, and again looks great with the dress over the top. Pretty steel herringbone panel skirt with a love dress and my Anytime top, sleeves showing or not showing. And I thought I'll grab the jacket as well. It's not like the jacket I'm not allowed to be shown anymore. I just wanted to put a bit more emphasis on the panel skirts. But here's a whole jacket in this kind of color setting, all a bit calmer. It doesn't all have to be loud, but you still get nice contrasts and beautiful lines. So I'm going to keep going to also show you a panel skirt with a tunic. This is a love dress in the regular length, and I will now show you what is it that I grabbed? I think it was another smock, a smock, again in a neutral color, but to show you what that does in terms of how the colors work with the panel skirt. Here we go. Smock size 2 in undyed linen with the herringbone panel skirt in the steel. I can then of course bring the jacket back again, but I just wanted to show you the lines that the smock creates in combination with the color panels of the skirt. And of course I can brighten this up again. I'll put the pantsy skirt on to see if the colors are stronger, what that looks like. But here is a beautiful color coordinated neutral and spring-like outfit for you. Neutral top, pansy panel skirt. So a stronger color coming in at the bottom, nice pop of color, nice contrast, which you can then repeat either with some accessories at the top or of course with the joy jacket. Actually, I'll put the neutral side on the outside, so I don't introduce that much color at the top. I keep it all really calm and very neutral throughout the outfit, except for that splash of color at the bottom of the skirt and the little flashes that you get of the color on the inside of the jacket. Doesn't it look lovely? So, what about the pansy with the Mixed Spice? Really unexpected color combination? Why not? Let's try. This is what I want you to do in your wardrobe. Play with your different outfits and put unexpected color combinations together. You'll be surprised how well they look. I'll show you. So here's a size 2 petite tulip dress, which on me, because I'm taller, looks almost tunic-like and shows off more of the pansy in the skirt in the mixed spice. So in a color that you may not necessarily think of wearing together with a purple. I think they're stunning together. I'll put the jacket back on to show you more of the purple in combination with the dress. And the other reason that I chose the tulip dress rather than putting the love dress back on is that, of course, as the weather warms up, you can start wearing your tulip dresses either with the top underneath, or when it gets warmer, leave the top off, just have the tulip dress, and then you can still put a joy jacket over the top of them when it gets a little bit chilly, or you want an extra layer, or the sun disappears, or whatever it is. They're a good combination with the tulip dresses. So here we are. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to close the jacket to show you the different horizontal lines that I've created throughout this outfit. I've got the jacket coming in first with little points, then the almost tunic length dress, and then the two contrasting colors of the skirt. And as you can see, if those lines are separated like that, they don't cut you in half, they don't make you look short and dumpy, but because there's more than one line, it actually ends up creating and emphasizing that column with another block and another block and another block on top. I hope you enjoyed this. Any questions or comments, please shoot, and I will see you again soon.